Hi everyone, and welcome back to our second video blog for the HP High Flyers Sales Academy. Now, when we spent a week together, I mentioned that Robyn Haydon will be joining us. Robyn is the author of the Shredder Test, one of Australia's leading books on persuasive proposal writing and tender writing. And she's joining us today to have a chat about how you guys can be more persuasive when it comes to the written document. Now, each of you, thanks to HP, will receive a copy of the Shredder Test in the mail, so you'll be able to catch up with all the great tips and techniques of converting your sales methodologies and sales value into the written word. But today we get a chance to have a chat to Robyn and find out a little more about what the top ideas are to make that written document sing. So, Robyn, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
That's good.
Let's start right at the top. What do you see as the top 5 mistakes that are made in proposal writing and tender writing?
Well, probably it kind of works along a continuum. So if you start at the beginning, really the number one is making sure that you choose the right targets, that you choose them early and that you allocate the right resources to those targets. I see a lot of organisations who have very burned out bid teams, and that's because they are bidding for a lot of business in, through quotes, through tenders, through proposals, and they're putting their best people on everything, and as a result they're not getting the best out of them. So you need to choose your targets and really rest your best people so that you're getting the right ideas and the right energy and enthusiasm out of them for the really important pitches that you absolutely have to win.
What happens when pre-sales people who often write a lot of the technical documents have 4 bids on the table and the sales team come in and say, I've got another 2 this week? So what do you think happens to the quality of the documentation?
I do see a lot of poor quality coming out of those environments. There's too much cut and paste, there's not enough focus on the customer, there's not enough actual input by the people who know the customer, the salespeople, the people who are out there talking to the customer every day. Those proposals tend to start and end at the technical proposal stage, where we're just building a solution, but we're not really talking about the benefits of that solution and why the customer should actually buy it. And that can actually become a problem. I've seen companies who used to go for everything that moves, actually paring back what they are pitching for and getting better win rates as a result.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they're actually not throwing a finite amount of resources at too many things that they're actually never going to win. Okay. Picking your targets well and picking them early is really important.
Saying no is often the tricky bit, huh?
It is the tricky bit because of course nobody wants to let an opportunity go, but if you've got a good go, no-go process, even if it's just 10 questions that you can give yourself a score out of 10 and you can justify later why you did or didn't pursue that opportunity, often that's enough to get the senior people to understand that not everything is a good opportunity. It might sound good, but is it really good, once you've started doing the due diligence on what it actually involves and what the commercial terms are and that kind of thing.
Okay. Let's look at the structure of the document. I talked to the guys during a week together about putting bump in. There's all this waffle and rubbish about they started in 1865 at the back of a shed and all of that. So
they have 300 years of combined experience doing this. Yeah, I see a lot of that.
Unparalleled experience in project management. So talk us through what you think is a good structure, what should be in the proposal, what shouldn't be, and what you see as best practice, because you help write tenders for a living.
That's right, that's what I do.
So tell us what you see as best practice.
Best practice is to read the brief early or have an understanding of what the brief is and get your best people in the room at the very outset. So within a couple of days, say, of a tender being released, get all your senior people and your subject matter experts together and work out what your strategy is and work out what your win themes are going to be. Because if you can't put up a convincing argument at that stage, then you really probably shouldn't bother expending the hundreds of hours on putting the proposal together. And it is a risk return kind of equation. If you look at that and you really can't come out of that feeling really enthusiastic about your chances of winning, then why invest the resources downstream in pulling the proposal together? I just came back from talking to a company in another industry that has a lot of issues with this because they know they need to do it and they've got a lot of instructions on what people need to do, but often they don't know how to do it. How do you put a strategy together? How do you come up with a win theme? How do you make sure that you've got the right one? So that's the sort of process that I go through and facilitate with people and leave them the tools to do that themselves. Because unless you get that right, the rest of what happens downstream can actually take you away from what you need to do to win.
Okay. And in terms of writing techniques like executive summary, what thoughts do you have about what do you put in the executive summary, what do you put in an ROI document, how much of the technical solution should be described, how much of the business solutions should be described? Do you have any rules of thumb or guidelines around that?
Yeah, I do. I think probably the biggest overall issue that I see in proposals that aren't successful is that they're just riddled with what I call unsubstantiated claims. You know, this is where we say, we're the leader in this, we're the best in that, you know, we have the most X, but there's no attempt made to provide evidence to support those things, and there's no correlation to what the customer themselves might see as relevant. Executive summaries are often very poorly done, but if you've gone through the strategy and win themes process, your executive summary actually falls out of that. Because if you can come up with the 2 or 3 key reasons why you should win the business, and that's your executive summary. It's like, thanks for the opportunity, here's the key reasons why we should win this business, here's the commercial offer that we're putting to you in terms of our pricing and so on, sign off by the most senior member of your bid team. And that's an executive summary, you know, that's what needs to be included in the executive summary. Coming up with a straw man or a structure of that fairly early in the piece so that you can see what your executive summary is going to look like is quite important. People often leave that till the end and then they just go through and cobble together all the things that sound good from the proposal and chuck them up at the beginning. But in actual fact, if it's buried on page 42 somewhere, the people that you really want to see that claim are not going to see it. It needs to be up front in the executive summary. You need to think it through and resource it with evidence right from the beginning. In terms of the ROI issue, again, it comes back to substantiating your claim. So you need to back up your ROI claims with a lot of evidence. So you mentioned, I think earlier when we were talking about this, that there are spreadsheets and things that people attach. But in terms of the key decision makers and what they want to know, they want actually proof that this does happen, that it's happened somewhere else. So including case studies and testimonials from clients who have experienced similar ROI in similar industries preferably is the kind of thing that those people are looking for, as well as the technical justification, because you're always going to get an accountant or somebody going through that with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that your numbers stack up. But that's not the only thing that they're looking for. They want to know that they're not the guinea pig you're trying this on, that other people have used this model before with great results.
And one of the things that typically see, most people will have case studies, but they put in a generic case study. So it's a manufacturing company X, and then they installed a managed print service, and they all saw great savings at the end. But there's nothing, as you say, to truly substantiate. This is where they started from. This is where they ended up. These were the real savings, and here's a presentation or a spreadsheet that describes exactly how they got from A to B. And they missed that link. It just sounds good saying ABC company has used them, but for what? And over what period? And what was the payback? And that's what you mean by substantiating real value.
And I think also taking it one step further from that and not only showing what you've done before and what you've achieved with other customers, but what did you learn through that process that you would apply to this project? So for example, we went in and installed this managed print service in this manufacturing organisation, and not only did they achieve these results, but along the way we've improved our process and we've learned this, this and this. And this is what we will bring to this new engagement.
Sounds good.
If you buy from us.
Let's look at the proposals for dummies area here. Some of the quotes or proposals that these guys will do don't involve, you know, hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, right? And you've got limited time, and you want to win, let's say, a $120,000 deal, to pick a figure. So you haven't got the time, nor should you put in that much time for the strategy, the win themes, and all of that. What are your key thoughts about good, simple, persuasive proposals for, say, a mid-size or average deal?
I would say the key thing still is to think through what the key drivers are for the client, and even though you're going to assemble a lot of that from what we call in the industry boilerplate, so material that you already have from past proposals, you still need to have a section at the beginning which says, this is our understanding of the issues that you have, this is how we will respond, here's the key reasons why you should choose us. It doesn't have to be a brainstorming session with 20 people, you know, when you've got a deal like that on the table, but you should still be able to sit yourself with a cup of coffee, you know, for 20 minutes and just sketch out in the back of an envelope what are the key reasons why they should choose you and talk about those. So if your proposal starts with that and then goes into all of the detail, includes some customer case studies and testimonials. With those, you probably wouldn't go into a lot of customisation, but you would reference them and say, here's a list of similar things that we've done. Here's some testimonials from customers, so don't take our word for it. You know, this is what our customers have to say about us, and here's the proof, you know, kind of at the back if you want to read it. But you don't want those things to be too long.
That's right, yeah. There's too many of these 50-page documents people don't read.
No, probably 6 to 10 pages for something about that size would be about right.
Okay. One last question, this is going to be a bit like asking you which is your favourite child.
I only have one.
Given you've poured your heart and soul into writing this book in a very Australian voice, which is terrific, if there was one chapter in here, because these are salespeople, they're going to flick through an airport, they're going to sit there over a cup of coffee and go, thank you HP for my book, but you know, if there's one chapter in here that you thought they really have to read, what would it be?
I think probably, and I think it's chapter 4, it's the chapter on expertise, presenting your expertise, you know, ways to do that work and ways that don't, because often I think we get very caught up in, you know, talking about ourselves and what we know about ourselves, but turning that on its head and looking at what we know and what we do from a customer perspective is really important. And there's a big difference in the way you present yourself when you're marketing and the way you present yourself when you're selling. And for those who are at the pointy end, for those who are about to make a sale, that's the most important thing, is to understand how to present your expertise in a way that addresses the client's issues. So I think probably that one. But read all the rest of them as well.
Of course. Thank you very much, Robyn. Appreciate your time today.
You're welcome.
And as mentioned, each of you will receive a copy of the Shredder Test very, very shortly. That should give you a few ideas on what to do with proposal writing and tender writing. I look forward to seeing you for our next video blog. See you soon.